So 2v8 is unfortunately coming to an end. I really do think that the devs should just extend the mode. I mean, the mode brung players back from the dead, for crying out loud. But anyways, today I want to kind of predict the future for 2v8, specifically killers' skills. So you see how in 2v8 mode, each killer has two unique skills, one being a team skill and one being an inmate skill. Not the shared skills where, for example, when you damage a generator, all survivors get revealed that's within 20 meters for you and your teammate. Those are shared skills. I'm talking about the unique skills that each killer has. For example, like when Trapper sets a trap and he's within 60 meters of his teammate, him and his teammate are granted 150% haste boost when Trapper sets that trap. Skills like that. Today I want to make up skills for each killer. Some are fitting, some are more interesting than the rest, and other ones just benefit the killers in some way, shape, or form. I even sometimes added more than one skill just to spice it up a little bit. So for Michael, I think his team skill would be something like, as long as Michael is stalking a survivor or survivors, their aura is revealed to Michael and his teammate for X amount of time. So that means as soon as Myers stalks a survivor, their auras will be revealed, and when their auras get revealed, it's only shown for like what, 4 or 3 seconds to Michael and his teammate. Another one I think would be fitting is when Michael is in Evil Within tier 1 and is within his teammate's proximity, his teammate will become undetectable. So a lot like Wraith, when Wraith is in cloak mode, his teammate also becomes undetectable as long as his teammate is close to him. For his inmate skill, these ones I noticed being kind of like based add-ons. That's almost exactly what they are actually. But anyways, for Michael, I think his Evil Within tier 3 duration will be increased in this mode, stock gain speed will be increased, and his movement speed while stalking will be increased. For Hag, I think her team skill would be something similar to Trapper. So when she sets down the trap within proximity of her teammate, Hag and her teammate receive a haste status effect for X amount of time. Say probably like 4 or 5 seconds. And for an inmate skill, I can see her trap setting speed being decreased and her teleportation range being increased. So she will of course be able to teleport a lot further in this mode when a trap is like further away from her, like all the way across the map. For Doctor, I think his team skill would be something a bit unique. I think that when the Doctor uses his shock therapy within proximity of a teammate, Doc and his teammate receive a haste status effect for X amount of time. This one I'll put to only like 3 seconds, maybe even 2.5, only because Doctor would keep using that shock therapy. So every time he uses it when he's within proximity of his teammate, him and his teammate will get a haste status effect. So of course you would expect him to keep on spamming it, which is the intended purpose anyways. For his inmate skill, I could see him having an increased shock therapy range, increased static blast range, decreasing the time it takes for Survivor's Madness tier to increase. So basically Survivor's Madness increase quicker and shock therapy recharge cooldown will be decreased. For Bubba, I could see his team skill being a lot like Hillbillies. So for Bubba, as soon as Bubba is using his chainsaw within proximity of a teammate, that triggers the exposed status effect until Bubba stops using his chainsaw. So as soon as Bubba stops using his chainsaw, there's no more exposed status effect for the survivors. Remember, this only works if Bubba is within proximity of a teammate. Basically, the idea behind this is for Bubba and his teammate to get a sync kill or a sync down, because when Bubba chainsaws a survivor down, or when Bubba is in the process of doing that, his teammate could get it down right before he gets it down. His inmate skill, I can see him having 6 chainsaw charges at base, decreased syndrome duration, and decreased chainsaw recharge cooldown. For Freddy, I think for him, while a survivor or survivors are in the dream world, they will also be oblivious to Freddy's teammate. So yeah, him and Bubba would be pretty close. Another skill I added is that when a survivor activates a dream snare or dream pallet, their auras are revealed for X amount of time. Probably like around 4 or 3 seconds. For his inmate skill, I could see him having 14 dream snares or 14 dream pallets at base, and the dream projection cooldown would be decreased. For the pig, I could see her team skill being something like, as soon as the pig puts a reverse bear trap on the survivor, pig and her teammate are undetectable for X amount of time. The idea behind this is that when pig puts a reverse bear trap on the survivor and they both get undetectable, her and her teammate, that opens up the possibility for her teammate potentially ambushing another survivor from the undetectable to either send that survivor to a cage or have a pig put a trap on the survivor. And for the pig, she could potentially get an ambush, send the survivor to a cage, or put another reverse bear trap on another survivor's head. I also think while the pig is in crouch mode within proximity of her teammate will also be undetectable. For her inmate skill, I can see her having 8 reverse bear traps at base, cause 8 survivors, reverse bear trap set time being decreased, crouch speed being increased, crouching and uncrouching speed being decreased, and ambush charge time being decreased. For the clown, I can see his team skill being when the survivor or survivors are intoxicated by the clown's bottles, their auras are revealed to clown and his teammate for X amount of time, say like 4-3 seconds. His inmate skill would be 8 bottles at base, and his reload bottle speed will be decreased. For the spirit, I think something interesting for her as a team skill would be, as she's phasing, her teammate is undetectable. So until the spirit stops phasing, and no matter where her teammate is, so that means she doesn't have to be in proximity of her teammate will still receive undetectable just as long as spirit is phasing. Then when it stops, no longer undetectable for the teammate. Her inmate skill, I could see her having phase charge time being decreased, her phase recharge cooldown being decreased, and her phase duration being increased. For the Legion, I could see their team skill being whenever Legion has Frenzy activated within their teammate's proximity, both Legion and their teammate receive a haste status effect. The original idea I had, instead of Legion being within proximity, was one where as long as Legion gets a Frenzy attack, Legion's teammate will receive a haste status effect for a certain amount of time. I would say like only 2 seconds or 2.5 seconds, because you don't know how close together the survivors will be. So the haste will of course just multiply on top of one another. I don't know, let me know which team skill you like better. I can see the inmate skill being something like Frenzy attacks giving Legion a speed boost. When Legion damages a generator, it pauses the Frenzy recharge time being decreased, and the killer instinct detection range for Frenzy being increased. For Plague, I think her team skill would be something like when a survivor or survivors are infected or injured from Vile or Corrupt Purge, they have their auras revealed to Plague and her teammate for X amount of time, say like 4-3 seconds. For an inmate skill, I can see Vile or Corrupt Purge charge speed being decreased. I can see survivors infection rate speed being increased whenever they interact with anything, and I can also see the Vile Purge effectiveness being increased. For Ghostface, I think his team skill would be something like if Ghostface marks a survivor or survivors, him and his teammate get a haste status effect for X amount of time. Another one I added is that when Ghostface is in stealth mode within proximity of a teammate, his teammate will also become undetectable. For his inmate skill, I can see his stock speed being increased, his lean stock speed being increased, his crouch speed being increased, and the time it takes to reveal Ghostface when he is in stealth mode being increased. For the Demogorgon, I can see his team skill being as soon as Demogorgon is teleporting through a portal, Demo's teammate receives undetectable until Demo exits the portal. This effect lingers for X amount of time, I would say like 4-3 seconds. For his inmate skill, I can see him having 12 portals at base, his shred cooldown being decreased, his miss shred cooldown being decreased, and his shred pallet break cooldown being decreased. For Oni, I can see his team skill being when survivors run within proximity of blood orbs, their auras are revealed to the Oni and his teammate for X amount of time. However, if survivors are stationary within proximity of blood orbs, they won't be detected. So it basically means when a survivor is standing still and they tend to bleed from the blood orbs, but they're still standing still, they won't be detected by the blood orbs. They have to run close to the blood orbs for them to be detected. So sure, when they start running, they will be detected, but as long as they're still, you can't see the aura. For Oni's inmate skill, I could actually see him having no insta down in this mode. I actually think that might be quite busted, especially if it's a great Oni, but instead his dash charge speed will be decreased, his dash speed will be increased, and his dash duration will be increased. So sure, he won't have the insta down, but he will be a lot more quicker and menacing. For Deathslinger, I can see his team skill being something like as long as Deathslinger has a survivor speared within proximity of a teammate, survivors are inflicted with the exposed status effect. The purpose of this is for Deathslinger to hold the survivor down as his teammate insta downs, or maybe even them getting a sync down where Deathslinger downs a survivor close by his teammate and his teammate downs the survivor just by a basic attack, as long as they both have exposed status effect. For his inmate skill, I can see him having his reload speed decreased, his stun duration decreased, his reeling speed increased, and his miss shot cooldown decreased. For Pyramid Head, I could see his team skill being something like when Sarus run through Torment, Killer Instinct is revealed to both Pyramid Head and his teammate. Undetectable would also be granted to both Pyramid Head and his teammate for X amount of time. For this one, I would put like 7 seconds. For his inmate skill, I can see Punishment of the Damned's range being increased, Rites of Judgment Trail recharge duration being decreased, and his Rites of Judgment Trail duration being increased. The purpose of the team skill is to basically punish the survivor for running into Pyramid Head's trails by granting Undetectable to both Pyramid Head and his teammate. So basically, by running in Torment, they could potentially get ambushed by Pyramid Head or his teammate. When the Blight rushes within proximity of his teammate gets a haste status effect for X amount of time, say like 3 seconds. I could additionally see something where Blight also receives 1 extra rush token when he rushes within proximity of his teammate. For his inmate skill, I can see him having 7 rush tokens at base, increased rush speed for every consecutive rush recharge cooldown being decreased, and rush turn rate being increased. For twins, I can see something where when Victor successfully hits a pounce attack, both Charlotte and their teammate will receive Undetectable for X amount of time. To add to that, the twins teammate can also see the Killer Instinct from Victor's pounce. For her inmate skill, I can see her having Victor's Unbind speed being decreased, pounce charge speed being decreased, pounce cooldown being decreased, and Charlotte's wait time being decreased. For Trickster, I could see something where when Trickster hits a survivor or survivors with his blades, it could even be a single blade, the survivor's auras are revealed to Trickster and his teammate for X amount of time. For this one, it would be like 2.5 seconds, only because even with a single blade, you can see their aura. For his inmate skill, I could see him having 88 blades at base, his reload speed being decreased, him having blade ricochet in this mode, and showstopper recharge time being decreased. For Nemesis, I can see his team skill being where when Nemesis attacks a survivor with his tentacle, that survivor's aura is revealed to Nemesis and his teammate for X amount of time, that being like 3 seconds. For his team skill, he'll have a few things added. Nemesis teammate can see zombies' auras, Nemesis teammate can attack zombies, and Nemesis teammate can see the Killer Instinct of vaccinated survivors. For his inmate skill, I can see his mutation rate being increased on all tentacle strikes, zombies moving faster in this mode, and zombies getting a speed boost for X amount of time every time a gen gets completed. I would say like 5 seconds, since they already move faster anyways in this mode. For Pinhead, I can see his team skill being when Pinhead is within proximity of his teammate and successfully hits a survivor with his chain, that survivor is exposed. The survivor would remain exposed until they have escaped the chains. If Pinhead's teammate happens to enter Pinhead's proximity as a survivor is chained, the survivor would become exposed. So similar to Deathslinger, Pinhead can hold the survivor down for his teammate to get the insta down. They just have to be close to one another for that to happen. However, if the chains happen to break, the exposed will end immediately. I added a few things for his team skill. A survivor hit with a chain or possessed chain has their aura revealed to Pinhead and his teammate until they have escaped the chains. Another one is if Pinhead's teammate finds the box, the aura would highlight for Pinhead. So his teammate can't pick up the box, of course, but if the teammate does see the box and is close to the box will highlight for Pinhead to pick it up. This is to make it so where the teammate could also find the box, and if they don't happen to be on comms, the box would just be highlighted for Pinhead once the teammate finds it. For Pinhead's inmate skill, I can see his possessed chain recharge cooldown being decreased, his possessed chain turn rate being increased, and when the survivor uses collision to break the chain, an additional chain would target them. For the artist, I could see her having something where when a survivor or survivors are swarmed by the dire crows, artist and her teammate receive Undetectable for X amount of time. This is so when artist swarms a survivor or survivors, her and her teammate have the potential to ambush the survivor or survivors that happen to be swarmed. I say that Undetectable will last for like 6 seconds. Also, survivors' auras are revealed for X amount of time to artist and her teammate if a survivor is swarmed or injured by a dire crow. I would say for like 3 seconds their auras get revealed. For her inmate skill, I can see her dire crow recharge time being decreased, her severed hands add-on being based. That's when it causes survivors within 3 meters of a swarm survivor to become swarmed as well, and the length of the time artist movement slows after launching a dire crow being decreased. For the Onreal, I think her team skill would be something like while Onreal is the manifested and within proximity of her teammate, her teammate receives undetectable as well. I added the same thing that Wraith has for stealth killers, all stealth killers, or killers that just have an aspect of stealth to them, stealth that's actually somewhat lasting, because I want those killers to have that same chemistry when it comes to just being undetectable. When Onreal uses projection, her teammate receives haste for X amount of time. This is to make it so Onreal is gifting her teammate something every time she uses her projection. For her inmate skill, I can see her speed boost duration being increased after projection, time for TVs to turn back on being decreased, intermittently and full invisibility durations are increased after manifesting. For the Dredge, I can see his team skill being while Nightfall is active, the Dredge teammate receives undetectable. So similar to how when a survivor is in the dream world, survivors will also be oblivious of Freddy's teammate. Just in this case, since it's Nightfall, the survivors will also just be undetectable to the Dredge's teammate. The killer would be undetectable during Nightfall. Another thing I added is that as long as Dredge is in the locker, enters the locker, or is in the process of entering the locker, Dredge's teammate receives undetectable. Dredge's teammate loses undetectable when Dredge exits the locker. Undetectable lingers for X amount of time. I would say like 3 seconds. This is to make it so where the Dredge and his teammate could possibly plan an ambush and ambush survivors at the same time in different locations or at the same location. For Dredge's inmate skill, I can see him having 6 teleport tokens at base, his locker exit speed being decreased, his non-nightfall teleport recharge cooldown being decreased, his nightfall teleport recharge cooldown being decreased, and nightfall charges when injuring a survivor being increased. However, Dredge must injure a survivor to receive nightfall progress, not his teammate. His teammate can't do that for him. For Wesker, I can see his team skill being when Wesker hits a survivor with a bound, both Wesker and his teammate can see that survivor's aura for X amount of time. Also to add, Wesker's teammate sees the killer instinct whenever a survivor is used for a sage spray. For Wesker, I can see his inmate skill being bound recharge cooldown being decreased, movement speed while charging bound being increased, and his second bound duration being increased. For the Knight, I can see his team skill being as long as Knight is within his teammate's proximity while using his patrol path, his teammate receives haste. Haste lingers for X amount of time. I would say like 3 seconds. So basically, as long as Knight is using his patrol path while he's close to his teammate, he's giving his teammate haste that whole time until he ends that patrol path. So until he sends the guard, his teammate has haste as long as they close to one another. After he sends a guard, then that haste lingers for 3 seconds for his teammate. For his inmate skill, I can see his detection radius being increased, his guard interaction time being decreased, and cooldowns for spawning each guard being decreased. For the Skull Merchant, I can see her team skill being whenever a Skull Merchant's teammate enters a drone's radius, her teammate receives undetectable and haste for X amount of time. I would say like 4 or 5 seconds. For her inmate skill, I can see her having 10 drones at base and haste and undetectable when entering a drone's radius for X amount of time. For Singularity, I can see something where whenever Singularity slipstreams a survivor, his teammate receives haste for X amount of time. I would say like 4 seconds. I added a few things for Singularity's team skill. While Singularity is in overclock mode, his teammate could break pallets, damage generators, and vault windows faster. Basically, Singularity giving his teammate overclock mode, but it won't be as fast for his teammate. Like when his teammate breaks a pallet or damages a generator, it'll most likely be the same speed as Brutal Strength. And when his teammate fast vaults a window, it'll most likely be the same speed as Bamboozle, or something like that. Singularity's teammate can also see the killer instinct of a slipstream survivor. For Singularity's inmate skill, I can see him having 16 biopods at base, the time it takes for a biopod to reboot being reduced, and overclock mode being increased. For the Xenomorph, I can see his team skill being as long as Xenomorph is in the tunnels, Xeno's teammate is undetectable. If Xeno exits the tunnels within proximity of his teammate, survivors are exposed for X amount of time. I would say like 8-7 seconds. So basically the purpose of this is for Xeno and his teammate to plan the attack and both sink insta-down the survivor at the same time, potentially. Or maybe just one if they get the chance. But I can only imagine a scenario where the Xenomorph crawls through the tunnel to his teammate's location and they both wind up getting an insta down. I just think that would be so satisfying. And I also just like the idea of Xeno's teammate being undetectable as long as Xeno is in the tunnels. Gives Xeno's partner some ambush potential if it's not a stealth killer. Bubba. I added a few things for Xeno's team skill. When a Xeno injures a survivor with a tail strike, their aura is revealed to Xeno and his teammate for X amount of time. I'll say like 3 seconds. Xeno's teammate can see the killer instinct from survivors nearby where Xeno exited his tunnel, and turrets do not affect Xeno's teammate, only Xenomorph. For Xeno's inmate skill, I can see the detection range of survivors' footsteps being increased, turrets automatically being destroyed after taking Xeno out of crawl mode, and crawl mode recharge cooldown being decreased.
This good guy is always ready for some fun. You'll want to keep him.
For Chucky, I can see his teammate skill being while Chucky is in hidey hole mode within proximity of a teammate, his teammate receives undetectable. I can also see something where when Chucky injures a survivor with slice and dice, that survivor's aura is revealed to Chucky and his teammate for X amount of time. I'll say like 3 seconds. For Chucky's inmate skill, I can see hidey hole mode recharge cooldown being decreased, slice and dice cooldown being decreased, and slice and dice missed attack cooldown being decreased. For a known, I can see his team skill being when a known hits a survivor or survivors with UVX and is within proximity of his teammate, the affected survivors are inflicted with expose for X amount of time. I would say like 7 seconds. Also, when a known injures a survivor or survivors with UVX, their auras will be revealed to unknown and his teammate for X amount of time. I would say like 3 seconds. For its inmate skill, I can see unknown have an increased hallucination spawns to 8, regaining control faster after teleporting to a hallucination, reducing the time it takes for hallucinations to spawn, and reducing the time it takes for hallucinations to charge back after teleporting to one. For Vecna, I can see his team skill being when Vecna attacks a survivor or survivors with the skeletons, the affected survivor's auras will be revealed to Vecna and his teammate for X amount of time. I'll say like 3 seconds. Also, Vecna's teammate can see the killer instinct from survivors affected by the dispelling fear. For his inmate skill, I can see Vecna's recharge cooldown for all spells being decreased, flight cooldown time being decreased after use, flight's duration being increased, the radius of the dispelling sphere being increased, and increasing the time Mage Hand holds a pallet up. And those are my predictions. These inmate skills seem so fast. It's almost like they make the killer play faster, which fits perfectly for this mode because this mode is a fast-paced mode. You have to be quick. You really can't take your time in this mode since there is 8 survivors. You only have one partner to depend on. So it's like you have no choice but to play fast-paced. And I noticed that with the inmate skills is that certain killers have buffs that make them go faster. I actually think they all have buffs to make them go faster or play faster in some way, shape, or form. So I can see the killers getting buffed in that same manner. But anyways, what do you guys think about my predictions on the unique skills for each killer in 2v8 mode? Can you see it? Can you not see it? Do you think it's possible or not possible? Let me know down below. Love y'all. Take care. I'm gonna see y'all on the next one. And peace.